When Orson Welles delivered the rushes of The Lady from Shanghai to Columbia, it all seemed a sprawling mess. He'd improvised lots of things not in the script. Harry Cohn assigned producer Virginia Van Up and editor Viola Lawrence to help Welles whip the film into shape. Van Up notated every bit of footage on index cards, and she and Welles, on their hands and knees, arranged a reasonably coherent narrative on the floor of her office. A lot of footage was spent on the now legendary Crazy House scene that climaxes the film. None of it, except the film's final shot, was actually done in San Francisco's legendary Playland at the Beach. It was all constructed by special effects man Lawrence Butler, who'd made magic for 1940's Thief of Baghdad. The funhouse maze was almost 3,000 square feet and filled with sliding doors, distortion mirrors, and a 125-foot zigzagging slide. Cameraman Charles Lawton made a number of trips down it to capture Welles's subjective point of view. 80 plate glass mirrors were constructed, some of them of two-way design to accommodate filming through them. Welles loved this scene so much he actually helped construct and paint the set. The end result was a scene that ran more than 10 minutes, almost one entire reel. In the end, it was pared down brilliantly to a dazzling 4 minutes. Eventually, as he usually did, Welles walked off the film before post-production was finished. Van Up and Lawrence fashioned a bumpy 88-minute ride out of what Welles had once envisioned as a 155-minute epic. When Harry Cohn saw the final cut, he shouted, "I'll give $1,000 to anybody who can explain this thing to me." Welles and Hollywood never meshed after he achieved narrative perfection with Citizen Kane right out of the gate. After that, he became obsessed with poetic inspiration, and he rarely mustered the patience required for conventional coherence. As for his on-screen depiction of his soon-to-be ex-wife, Welles treated Rita Hayworth like fallout from that atomic bomb test. Elsa Bannister is a glowing, radiant menace, too dangerous for any sane man to touch. Like the bomb itself, she's a siren luring men to their destruction. It was a chilling, mean-spirited vision in a film too personal to be dismissed as a tossed-off entertainment. Welles may have had the attention span of a 10-year-old, but he never crafted mere diversions. As David Thompson suggested in Rosebud, the story of Orson Welles, it's tempting to believe Welles conceived of Elsa and Arthur Bannister as doppelgangers of Rita and Harry Cohn. In real life, as in the film, Welles left them to each other once he realized that he wasn't the man who'd rescue the princess from the monster. Harry Cohn was so incensed with how Welles handled his biggest star, he shelved The Lady from Shanghai for more than a year, eventually leaking it out on the bottom half of double bills. Welles was almost finished in Hollywood. After one more film, a dynamic bargain basement version of Macbeth for Republic Pictures, Welles ditched Hollywood for Europe. Rita Hayworth, sadly, was pretty much done herself. She formed her own production company and valiantly tried to break the femme fatale mold, but the public had already hardened her into an icon. Columbia put her in a Gilda sequel called Affair in Trinidad, and in films like Salome and Miss Sadie Thompson, the studio refused to let her be anything other than a temptress, even after the actress and the public had lost interest. With Welles's Irish brogue coming and going, and Rita Hayworth directed to be inscrutably impassive, the actors who pretty much steal the picture are Everett Sloane as spidery shyster Arthur Bannister and his oddball partner, George Grisby, played in full sweat by Glenn Anders. Anders was primarily a stage actor, and he reportedly hated working with Welles because the director constantly rewrote his dialogue and would intentionally irritate him to get a more jittery, nervous performance. Welles and Everett Sloane were longtime colleagues, going back to their radio days in New York, where Sloane was a charter member of the Mercury Theater of the Air. He came with Welles to Hollywood to appear as Mr. Bernstein in Citizen Kane, and he maintained an incredibly busy career until 1965, when, terrified he was going blind, he killed himself with an overdose of barbiturates. Now, if this was your first time seeing The Lady from Shanghai, or your 50th, let us know what you thought of it on the Noir Alley Facebook page or Twitter feed. Next week, we've got another offering from Columbia Pictures in 1948, but it's decidedly less well known than The Lady from Shanghai. It's The Sign of the Ram, a dark domestic drama set on the English coast, starring Susan Peters, Alexander Knox, and Peggy Ann Garner. And even though the script is by frequent Hitchcock collaborator Charles Bennett, there's no way the finished film can match this movie's backstory for intrigue and tragedy. I look forward to sharing all that with you next week. And remember, one who follows his nature keeps his original nature in the end. Whatever the hell that means.